Like I could just feel like this hot warmth wrapping around my leg. My back leg just literally bends in half underneath me and I just fall to the floor. That second, I rolled over and looked at my corner to Shane and that, and I'm just turned to them and I'm like, it's broke.
You got really lucky with the rehab, didn't you, with the doctor?
On the night, my whole team, they're sitting in the hospital with me all night, just getting my foot put in a normal cast. And at one point, just the phone just rings this one random time at like, hello, is this Mr. Davis, blah, blah, blah. There's been a cancellation in triage. If you're willing to come back up now, we'll operate for you. Went straight in, got the operation, come out.
Such fast recovery for what happened, so quick.
My dad went to the Olympics and all stuff like that for boxing, but he was never really someone that spoke about boxing.
Did he not talk about it much to you as a kid then?
No. And then as I started like getting older, like found out like for an amateur boxer he was an absolute knockout merchant.
So how's your ankle, mate?
Yeah, it's good now. It's definitely on the move to getting 100%. Like I was saying to you earlier, like I can do anything now, like as normal, but it just something when I do certain things, it feels like I've got a bit of a rubber foot. It doesn't feel the way my other foot feels, but I can literally do anything. I can run, skip, shadow box. I even done my first spar the other day with a couple of the amateurs, so everything's on the right track so far.
Brilliant. So going back to that night, you against Foley, can you just talk us through the rounds? Because you remember it quite clearly, didn't you?
Yeah,
what happened?
In the first round, obviously we're setting off, trying to find a rhythm, start landing my right hand. Like for the highlights of the first round, I think it's just me landing right hands. Go back to my corner. Shane's basically saying, keep doing what you're doing, keep moving to the right, keep finding the inside of his jab or coming on the outside of it. Keep doing that. Second round, all going well. I probably start getting a bit complacent because I'm landing so easily. And then I'm just like lead arms down, leaning back, and he like shoots him with like he pokes out his backhand, but then shifts his feet in and like whips a right hook round. And as I'm leaning back, it couldn't land any more clean on the tip of my chin. And cause I'm leaning back, it's like a flash knockdown threw me back to the floor, and I like hit the canvas, must be about 3, and I'm already jumped up. And instantly I'm looking at his corner, like the corner he's standing in, I'm in my own corner, and I'm looking and I'm going like, good shot, do you know what I mean? And then the bell goes, and I'm like, oh, and I'm already in my corner, and I turn round, and Shane goes to me, you're alright, blah, 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 and I'm like, oh, yeah, sound, shouldn't have got it with that. And he goes, how's your ankle? What do you mean, my ankle? Like, I look at him odd, and he's like, oh, I thought you went over on it then. And I was like, nah, I'm all right. And then he goes, right, anyway, what? And he starts giving me instruction. And while he's talking to me, I like interrupt him and go, wow, I can feel that now. And he goes, feel what? I said, it's my foot's going dead hot. Like I could just feel like this hot warmth wrapping around my leg. And then you hear the clapper to come out for the next round. So I stand up and he gives me a swig of water and goes, is it all right? And I like look behind me, look at him and go, I'll tell you now. And I go out into the middle of the ring. Me and Dara are standing there, we're like sword fencing. He like throws a jab. I like lean a bit, just glance off me. And then he like fakes like a southpaw hook, just like glances his hands. And as he does that, I flinch off it. And as I lean back on my back leg just literally bends in half underneath me. And I just fall to the floor. And the only bones I've ever broken my body is my hands. I've never broke anywhere else. But in that second, I rolled over and looked at my corner to Shane and that. And because they must be thinking like, what's happened there? Did I get it or what? And I'm just turned to them and I'm like, it's broke. And they're like, what? I'm like, my leg's broke. And Shane just starts waving the towel straight away. But in the meantime, the referee has already started counting. Like, where for me, and I think most people agree, if someone falls over in the middle of the ring, just falls over, normally a referee goes, stop, stand up, wipe your gloves, box. But I don't know what was going on with him, and he started counting me like I'd been it. So I had like pride. I jump up in the middle of the ring on one foot, and go, what are you counting me for? You never hit me. And then he because he's next to me and I realise I can't put my foot down, I grabbed the referee, I grabbed Marcus McDonald and put my hands around him. And then obviously everyone jumps in the ring then and starts helping me. And then obviously I get sat on a stool. But in the meantime, Foley's been jumping on the rope, celebrating and all that. But to be fair on him, he come back over to me when I'm sitting on the stool and he goes, fucking hell, I've just been celebrating on the ropes. I feel a twat now. I didn't realise you broke your leg. And I was like, everything he's saying to me is just like vague. Because I'm just like, what is going on here? And at the time, I didn't know what he meant, but he said, if you're ready in 3 months, we'll have the rematch. Do you know what I mean? And what he must have meant by that was what I was saying about the 90 days in his contract. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So he knew he was fighting in 90 days, no matter what. And he was like, if you're ready, I'll fight you. But obviously, that would have been too soon.
Yeah.
I think 90 days is around now, but I'm not. I'm fit as in my legs better, but I'm not fit as in ready to fight. Do you know what I mean? So it would have been a bit too short notice for me, because Eddie did say to me at the time, he said, because realistically, Rob, you're not going to be ready for June, July. And he was right, I wouldn't. And I did say, my leg will be better in June. So I was adamant I would get my leg better by June. And then I said, but then I'll need a couple of weeks to get fit. Do you know what I mean? That's why I've kept myself in good shape. So if anything does come up soon, I don't have to have a big struggle. I haven't been sitting on the couch eating chocolate sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
My name is Dennis McCann, professional boxer for Frank Moore and MTK Global. This is Fortress Boxing. A lot more protection. It's a no-brainer. Around your thumbs, around your knuckles, around my wrist. That's exactly where the problems are. They're very compact. So I feel like I'm punching hard with them on as well. And I feel like when you got sparring 14, 16 ounce gloves, the smaller wraps can't really. They're too small for the gloves. That makes sense. So these are a bit bigger, and they're getting the gloves a bit more. They're making them more compact.
You got really lucky with the rehab, didn't you, with the doctor?
Yeah, so I remembered his name now. His name was Lyndon Mason. So on the night, my whole team, they're sitting in the hospital with me all night, just getting my foot put in a normal cast. And at one point, I come back to everyone, I'm sitting in the the corridor, because the hospital was that rammed. They had me in the corridor with my leg up and that, on one of them beds. And they were like, oh, we've just heard someone screaming there, you don't want to stay on this corridor. And I was like, that was me. That was them setting my leg. Because I was like, because I was like I was saying, adrenaline must have kicked, I was worn off by now, so I can feel everything, do you know what I mean? And
you didn't take any painkillers, did you?
No, because I've always had one of them people that take ibuprofen and you end up with a bad stomach. I've always been one of them, and I was like, listen, if I can bear this pain on my ankle, I'll swerve the painkillers, do you know what I mean? I don't really like them. And so I the cast is done now, but I'm just waiting to get cleared by the doctor. So obviously I say me goodbyes to Shane and Barry and Jake. Everyone, everyone's there, the fighters, Ellie, Chris, and I was like, yeah, go on, you go, do you know what I mean? I'm with me missus now, blah, blah, blah. So they all get off, and me and my missus must get home about 3, 4 in the morning. And I'm still pumped, do you know what I mean? I can't sleep, I'm lying there, must have nodded off. And as you can imagine, on fight night, especially when something like that happened, my phone was going mad, do you know what I mean? Everyone wanted to make sure I'm all right, blah, blah, blah. I must have had 200 texts off all mates and family and stuff like that. So I just leave my phone and thought I'll get back to it when I'm clear-headed, blah, blah. And then the phone just rings this one random time at must have been 7:30 in the morning. And I go, I look at my phone and I'm like, my missus is asleep next to me, and I answer the phone, but I literally tap loudspeaker and just place the phone on my chest there. Hello. I go, hello, is this Mr. Davis? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh yeah, and it's it's NJB Hospital. And I'm like, yeah, I've just left there this morning. And they were like, what it is, there's been a cancellation in triage. If you're willing to come back up now, we'll operate for you. Do you know what I mean? I was like, literally, because my head's everywhere. I just turned over to me. Missus was like, shall we go? And she was like, yeah, of course, let's go now. You'd rather get it sorted sooner rather than later. I'm like, the one must have been thinking on the phone, who's he? As if to say, if I can't be bothered. And I was like, oh, yeah, go on, we'll be there now. It'll only be 20 minutes, because we literally live that close. And I threw some gear on, went down, must have waited literally about half an hour, went straight in, got the operation, come out. The professor, Lyndon Mason, standing there, he's like talking me through everything, saying how successful it was, told me that if I'd have knew in that second round that my leg was broke, I would have probably got away from, because in the third round when my leg bent underneath me, on the inside of my leg, it ripped all the ligaments and the tendons. I would have got away from that if I'd have knew and just broke my leg. Do you know what I mean? He said, because you've stood on it and your ankle's like bent all the way around, all your inside ligaments have all been overly stretched in your tendons. I was like, he said, so what I've done, I've repaired all them as well. I've stitched all them together for you. And I was like, oh, thanks, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, take it, you seen it then? And he was like, instead of just saying yeah or no, he was like, have you seen me? And I was like, what? And he was like, naming all people, players, and that he'd fixed up before. And I was like, oh, sounds. But I was thinking, at least he knows what he's on about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then obviously he said to me, and I've got that sorted for you on the NHS, blah, blah, blah. And instead of going to the NHS physio, I'm going to put you in this place called the Rehab for Performance by Liverpool Airport. I've already given your name into them, so once you're ready to ring them, they're going to look after you for the rehab. And when I went in there, it's all like, because of what the injury is, it's more common to like rugby and football. And I met all like even at one point I was seeing the Great Britain snowboarding team in there. Don't like, so it's all them types of sports. And obviously went straight in. I had like 2 weeks of non-bearing, where that was stress, just like sitting at home with my foot up, little girl just climbing on my head wanting me to play, and I'm just like, oh, I can't, babe, like I can't move. And she doesn't understand. She's like, stop being lazy, get up. Do you know what I mean? What's that on your foot? Trying to pull it off. And then after the 2 weeks weight bearing, I went straight into rehab, and then within 6 weeks I went back up for me check-up with the hospital, and he cleared me. He said, like, your bone is already healed now because of the plate we put in. He said, the only thing you've got to work on now is your ligaments, just to repair them and get them stronger. And then obviously I was telling him what my little niggles are and stuff like that. I was like, I'm getting niggles in like places we didn't even know there was an injury. And he said, like, because of like the injury, you'll have loads of other little things that will all be still knitting back together. So I was like, all right, fair enough. And then I think it was like the 8-week mark, I really like let loose. Then I could proper go for it in my training again. Do you know what I mean? Don't think I was quite running then, but I was nearly there. I was running on what they call it an AG running machine, and it like fills with air. So you put in like the percentage of body weight you actually want to be
like
on.
The anti-gravity type
That
ones?
is it. That's what AG means, anti-gravity. Yeah. So I was using them at first, then this rehab for performance, and then eventually, like, without me noting, they'd put me on 100% body weight. So I was still running in the machine, but didn't realise there was no gravity lifting me anymore, and I was just running. They were like, see, it's just in your head, like, you're ready to go. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I've just progressed, and now we're here.
Such fast recovery for what happened, so quick.
Yeah, do you know what, like, even on, when I went in on that 6 weeks, before the professor cleared me, he asked another doctor to come in, and he was like, take a look at this, told them what I'd gone on. He was like, oh yeah, that looks great, yeah, that really neat work. And he went, that's only in 6 weeks. And the other doctor was like, what? And he was like, whoa, that's amazing for 6 weeks to be like that already. And I was like, obviously I don't even know what I'm looking at. I'm just looking at what there's some screen. I was like, oh, sounds made up. And then that was when I really started kickstarting then.
Brilliant. So when did you actually start boxing? I don't know much about your amateur career.
I think I first started boxing when I was young, because obviously my dad went to the Olympics and all stuff like that for boxing, but he was never really someone that spoke about boxing, like because he was well retired, because by the time, because I think my dad had me when he was like 39, and he was well retired. But then
Did he not talk about it much to you as a kid then?
No. And then as I started like getting older, like, found out like for an amateur boxer he was an absolute knockout merchant, like fought nothing like me. He just like bombed me out, and basically got to the Olympics by banging people out. Don't like, not by being a classy boxer or nothing. And obviously I walked in. I think the first gym I ever went to was Tower Hill Boxing Club, which is up the road. But there was always trouble outside and stuff like that. And I was like, that's not worth going to a boxing gym. I was only young as well, so I left it. And then when I was about 15, I think like our gym was somewhere else then, but the local area, I think everyone at some point had a little go in a boxing gym. Do you know what I mean? And because all my mates were going, I went in as well. And my dad's from over the water. And when I first joined Knowsley Vale, one of the coaches was from over the water. And when I give my name in for like, pay your subs and your name, they went, you don't know a Robbie Davies from over the water, do you? And I was like, it's me dad. And they were like, what? And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, your dad was a good boxer. And I was like, well, I don't know. He's never mentioned it to me. Do you know what I mean? He was never really that type of fella. He was more of a man about town now. Do you know what I mean? Like a lad's lad. And then I think it was in 3 months, because my dad, like, we're in like our boxing gym, the McGuigan's gym. We're in a documentary coming up, and you'll see all this. Like, you'll see me as like a 3-year-old, and my dad's got me punching his belly and all that. So like, for someone that's just walked in a boxing gym, I half knew a little bit just off my dad had me like doing things around his house and stuff like that, or like he used to like pad me in front of people, do you know what I mean, saying, look at that, Rob, he's only 8, how we can dig, you know, and all this, and I'd be giving it all that. So by the time I went to a boxing gym, the coach at the time, Darren Ma, I think it was like 3 months in, and he was saying, I'm going to put you in the novices, and I'd only been in there, and my first fight was at, I think I was about 15, it was the Dockers Club, Liverpool Dockers Club. It's well known if you're from Liverpool. There used to be like a mist of smoke, because like everyone could smoke indoors back then, do you know what I mean? It was one of them, and I think I fought a kid from the Kirkdale who was on like his 9th fight, do you know what I mean, on my first.
And you've been boxing for 3 months.
Yeah, and then I ended up beating him, and then going right through the novices and winning them. The final didn't show up, so I ended up winning it.
Were you quite fit already for maybe other sports and things?
No, I used to always say like him, because I was don't know how it's the best way to put it. I was a scally, like boxing. I was burning the candle at both ends. Boxing was not my life when I was that age. Do you know what I mean? And then I won the novices. The final never showed up, and then he was like, "Joe, I'm gonna put you in the junior ABAs." And we were like, "Yeah, all right." So me and my coach at the time, Darren Ma, were weighing in for the ABA, my first junior ABAs. It's I'm fighting a kid from Vauxhall, so I can't think of his name now. We'd weighed in, and then we went to a McDonald's on like not far from the Dockers Club, and this is a mad one. Like, me and 2 other lads standing in the queue was a mistaken identity, and some car drove past and started shooting through the windows. And obviously my coach, who used to be the main coach in this gym, used to be like a Marine. He used to be a Marine. He was like, everybody hit the deck. He was like one of that. Like, at the time, only 15.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
that is not normal.
Yeah. So obviously we pulled me out, which was probably a good thing at the time, because I'd still only had like, I think I had like 13, 14 fights. Do you know what I mean? I was going to go on the junior ABAs with some kids that have had 40 odds. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I ended up waiting another year, and then I went in the juniors, and then I ended up winning them. Went right through the juniors. I think I got to the final. Remember Andy Townsend, professionally? I fought Andy in the junior ABA final. So like at this point now, I've had like 20 amateur fights, and
you weren't even taking it seriously still.
No, I used to always say I had 2 rounds in me, and then the 3rd round I'd just be hugging, because I was always knackered. And then
was that the game plan? Then win the first 2 and then hold on.
I don't know what was going on. I used to just do whatever needed to be done, do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, like, this note comes through the door, ABA, blah, 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 and I open it, and it says, you've been chosen for England, blah, 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 and I was like, wow. And then instantly, like, I had to make the choice between, because I was an half-decent footy player at the time, and I was like, I always wanted to get, like, a YTS and play for, like, a club or something like that, and I never got it. And then I got a little letter saying you can fight for England, and football quickly just fizzled out. Do you know what I mean? And I started going more towards boxing.
How old were you at this point?
Like 16, 17. And then I started like flying over the world with Young England and stuff like that. And then like I met like some of the loads of the fighters that you see like that are past now or was coming through at the time. They were all on the same England setup as me. Do you know what I mean? And like I had a few squads with AJ, had a few squads with Joe Joyce, like Ian Weaver, who's a coach now.
He had a great time on Team GB. We had him on the podcast last year.
Well, when it got to the GB part, like it was like Scott Cardle, Ronnie Efron. They were all like the same era as me. And like I got through one trial, then I got through the next trial, and then I think it was like Jim Davidson rang me, coach at the time, and he's obviously not thinking just live for him because he's just like, he doesn't know what he should say and what he shouldn't say. And they were like, hey, you know, Robbie got through to the next round, where is he? And my coach was like, he's in Magaluf with his mates. I was like on my first lads holiday, do you know what I mean? That was the sort of thing, like, where boxing wasn't my life, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. My outside life always come first, do you know, like enjoying myself up to a certain age. And
when did you make the switch to dedicate?
It was like I was early 20s, and I started putting everything in it. Like I wanted to be on the GB team so badly, like because I thought like they're getting paid. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd just left school and I went to college for a bit, and I was like, I fucking hate this. This is shit. I'm never going to be a joiner. I'm never going to be a bricklayer. Was outside. I was like, it's too cold. I'm not going there again. That's what I was like. Do you know what I mean? I was a fart with anything like that. Do you know what I mean? And then I think I got to the ABA final, and I fought Lewis Adolphi, and the computer scoring, like whatever was going on, had broke on like 5 fights before. And then that night, I'm not saying everyone didn't deserve it, but everyone in the red corner won that night. From then on, everyone from down south won. And it was on Box Nation at the time. I remember Box Nation used to cover lots of like amateur stuff as well. And like the two neutral judges went for me, and the 3 London judges went for him. And he got it, and I said, you know what, I'll never box as an amateur again. I think I was like 22 at the time. And I didn't. I turned pro then, and I was just like, but it was hard for me because I had a bag full of silver medals, on like ABA finals and stuff like that. Not really any credentials what you needed to turn pro with. So, but I was like, I'm not going to get on GB now. Tom Stalker was winning absolutely everything, so you were never going to get a sniff. Another kid, Danny Phillips, who was quality at the time, he beat me like 18-17. And then the other one coming through was Josh Taylor, and me and Josh had fought in Scotland, and he got it like on a debatable decision at the time. Do you know what I mean? Because I was the England captain, he was the Scotland captain. It was 2-2, me and him with the final fight. And I was like, I'm never going to get on GB now, ever. So I turned pro. And
how was that process of turning pro? Was it pretty quick? Quite smooth?
At one point I was speaking a lot to Andy Farnell, because I used to go up there and spar like Frankie Gavin and Ronnie Efron, who were already pros. And I was half thinking of going with him, and he like got me a contract put in front of me from Frank Warren, so that could have been my first contract. But I don't know what happened. I think I wanted to stay in Liverpool because I was only young and stuff like that, and I didn't want to be travelling to Manchester every day. So I ended up, I turned pro with Dave Coldwell, and I was just doing like small all shows and dinner shows and stuff like that, and I just worked my way up. And then at some point...
Did you have a good support network going through it all?
Yeah, that was always a good thing. Like, I think like minimum I sold 200 tickets, and on little shows that went well. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes a small old show could rely on me, do you know, for everyone else. Like I remember one time I pulled out and fucked the whole show up. Do you know what I mean? I always remember stuff like that. Like I wouldn't do that to other people now, but at the time I was just young and selfish, thinking, oh, fuck, I'm not ready, I'm not fighting. Do you know what I mean? I was a bit like that. And I don't know, whatever happened, I ended up splitting with Dave. Then I joined Neil Marsh. Still the same sort of scenario, going small old shows, but we were looking for like any gaps where I could make me move. And ITV started like doing shows then. And we were like, we're going to get you on these ITV shows on the back of Eubank. And I was like, oh, sound. And then an ITV box office comes up. Can't even remember who Eubank was fighting. And I get put with this fight with Sirawaka. And then leading up to the fight, obviously my dad passed in the build-up. And then I was scared to miss the opportunity and let... Because I was thinking, if I pull out, someone else is going to take my place and they're going to get the opportunity and I'm going to go back to small shows, do you know what I mean? And obviously, there was a few things within camp that hadn't went well either, especially in the final build-up. Then I've got that on the back of my mind of my dad's gone into a coma at the time, and he's not responding, which they could have really kept away from me for a couple of more days, but one of my dad's mates at the time, just a burden of bad news, could not wait to tell me. And I was like, I'm literally fighting in 2 days. Don't you not think my mum would have told me if I needed to know? Don't I? Like, but some people are just like that, aren't they? They love to spread bad news. And I went into that fight all guns blazing, ran out of steam in about 8-9 rounds. And then obviously the rest was history. I ended up getting myself sparked in like me first big main fight, my first acid test. And then I had to wait, my dad passed, had to grieve for a bit, and then 6, 7, 8 months later, I remember at that time I was getting offered all sorts of fights with like O'Hara Davis and people like that, and I was like, nah, because the only fight I want is the rematch. And my manager at the time, Neil Marsh, was like, listen, you can have this rematch and we'll do it in the auditorium. That's like the Echo Arena, but the other side it's only holds like 3,000 or 4,000. And he was like, we'll get like a good Liverpool undercard and we'll sell it out. Do you know what I mean? But you're going to get shit money. And I was like, I'll fight for free if I have to. Do you know what I mean? It was like, because in the rematch clause, he's got to get like X amount. Do you know what I mean? I was like, don't care. Do it. Let's do it. And then obviously I done that and chinned him. And then 2 fights later, I was British and Commonwealth champion and I was signed with Eddie. And then the ball was rolling then. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah. How when you lost that fight, and obviously you probably went through one of the toughest times of your life throughout that like month or two, how did you bounce back so quickly? Did you have the motivation knowing that this is your path?
Like, I think most boxers will tell you if anything outside the ring's going wrong, the best place you want to be is in the gym, because it's just like it isolates everything, and then your sole focus is just on being in the gym, and then you go back out of the gym, it's like you're back in the real world, and every problems and everything's all itchy again. So I was just like, best place for me now is just being in the gym. So that's what I done. I just made me bed in the gym and just stayed there until things picked up again. And then I wasn't like someone that like madly grieved, if I'm honest. It was like I didn't go to my dad's grave till like a year later. I think like it hit me then more. Do you know what I mean? And I was thinking like, if I could have showed you all these belts now, do you know what I mean? Like he'd have been buzzing just for me to win a British, do you know what I mean? Never thought that I went on to Commonwealth, European and all that, do you know what I mean? And international belts and whatever. So it was just like the process then of like just picking myself back up, and before you know it, I was just like back to where I was.
When you avenged the loss and moved on, obviously got all the belts and met with Eddie, was that the biggest break in your career? Was that like in your head, you're set for life now, this is what you've been working for your whole life?
Not really, no. Like I was, I think like most people say, like I'm not so much like that now. Like now I'm grateful for everything I've got, but when I was younger coming through, I was always wanting more. No matter what I had, I wanted more. No matter where I was in my life, I wanted to be further forward. Do you know what I mean? I think that's just to everyone really. No matter what you have in life, you always want more. Do you know what I mean? Rather than sitting back and being grateful for what you've already got. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't think of like some people out there would kill for what you've got. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to like process that at the time. Do you know what I mean? So, but like now I'm back in the same boat. Like I'm always wanting. Do you know what I mean? Like I am happy at home and stuff like that. But like even now, I'm still like I still have my own goals in my head of where I want to go and what I want to achieve, or like to prove doubters wrong.
What are them goals?
like for me, don't like small steps first. Like my main goal is to hopefully get the rematch with Foley. Like it's left his mouth that he would have me a rematch, even though it doesn't come at the time. Like that he gave me the time scale, but he's now lost, and I think it's only right that we settle it on like the terms of a rematch. And the words have actually come out of Eddie's mouth as well, saying we can do it again as well. So I'd say them two things are probably what's kept me going over the last couple of weeks. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks when I start speaking to people and seeing what's next and stuff like that, hopefully everyone's a man of the word and we can get it on.
Brilliant. And your gym's buzzing at the moment, obviously.
Yeah.
Everyone's winning left, right and centre, big titles. Is that giving you more drive now to...
Since I broke my leg, we've had 2 world champions in Chris Billam-Smith and Ellie Scotney, so the gym is bouncing. And then like we've got the young crop coming through, the Azims and Caroline Dubois, who, if you're a betting person listening to this, I'd put some money on that they're all going to be world champions. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. And what are they all like in the gym? Obviously, they're all different styles. Can you talk about a bit of them and what they're like in training?
Yeah, like Caroline, she's very skillful, hard hitting. She's going to be very hard to beat. Like she could be, because women's boxing now is either like the elite or your way down. Like she needs to just jump in with the elite now because she's there already. Do you know what I mean? And she can really make a stir in the mix with all the top girls at the especially at her weight. The likes of Hassan, he wanted to take a more slower approach compared to Adam because he wanted to find his feet in the pro game. And as you see in his last couple of contests, he's coming on leaps and bounds. He's knocking his opponents out and things like that. And Adam's just Adam's as red hot as people say. Like obviously I'm in the gym with him every day, I spar with him and stuff like that, and he has got that little something where you think, oof, he's a bit special to the average Joe. Do you know what I mean? I think with Adam it's just about timing, just getting the right fights at the right time, and I think he could definitely jump in the mix with some of the big boys now. It's just finding the process of like getting the rounds in, stuff like that, just a few things on his learning part, and then he'll be ready to go as well. And like he's another one who I'd put money on he's gonna shine in the next 2 years.
It's hard for him to get the rounds in because he keeps knocking them out, like you said, in sparring, you know?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've seen it with my own eyes. Like 3 sparring partners come in, and there's God's honest truth, people probably think I'm exaggerating listening to this, and he's sparked all 3 of them in one day. Like one's getting in to do a couple of rounds, he's down, the next one's getting in and he's down, and the next one's coming, he's down. And then people are like, who don't know him, are like, wow, I spiteful him. And then he gets out the ring and he's like, hi, you're all right. And they're just like, oh, actually, he's not. He's the nicest lad ever. Do you know what I mean?
He's got the switch.
Yeah, he's got the switch. Like, all of them have in our gym. Like, that's the good thing. Like, if you speak to Ellie Scotney, like, she's like my mate up there. Like, I can hang about with Ellie. Do you know what I mean? She's sound. And then when she gets in that ring, she's like a different person. her facial expressions change and everything. She's gung-go, ready to take your head off. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the sort of gym we have. Like it's a good family gym. Do you know what I mean? Everyone gets behind everyone. Everyone's backing each other, and everyone's out to give advice to each other where we can and stuff like that. It's definitely one of the most thriving gyms in the country, in my opinion.
Definitely. And what have you learned from these people, like especially even from the GB days and the amateurs? Is there certain things you've picked up from training with certain people where you're like, it just clicks definitely in your head?
Yeah, like Shane gives individual time every day to each individual fighter. Like we don't all just come in at 9 o'clock and he trains everyone. Like every morning he'll send like a time schedule out, and we'll all have individual times with Shane all day, and then each fighter he trains. Like he does have his specific way he likes to train his fighters, be like as all coaches too, but he changes it to the style of the fighter, like so everyone's is slightly different. Do you know what I mean? And then he'll just work what works best for you and him. Like honestly, he'll always find a way to bring out the best best in his fighters. Like if like I'd probably say my best 2 wins on my career are probably with him, like within Hank Lundy. Like he'd only ever been stopped by Terence Crawford, and then I got a big win there. Then the next one I'm fighting a USA Olympian, Molina. Like that was a tough fight with nothing really to gain. And then obviously if it'd be Foley, people would have been like, "What? Since Robbie's gone with Shane, he's really turned his career around." And not to mention, I was meant to be fighting the world number 1 Liam Parrow at the time before he pulled out with an injury. So I'm just like out to right the wrong, and then I can be back where I was, and people will be just like, "He's thriving since he's been with McGuigan's." Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. And you were a heavy favourite going into that fight, and with these circumstances, it's only fair that you get the rematch.
Hopefully, like I'm not one of them like saying what's fair is fair and all that, because nothing's fair in life. Do you know what I mean? But I just feel like he's just lost. My only losses to him of recent. So I think like the best thing for both of us is to do the rematch.
Definitely. How have you found adapting to the pros and going through the ranks? Obviously, when you started achieving all the titles and the competition, you went from early in the career, you've gone from Team GB and all of that to fighting dead bodies, journeyman, and then you've stepped up and you've gone through the ranks. How has that progress been?
Well, when I first turned pro, like the way it was done for me, it was like fight 1, stiff, journeyman, then fight alive. Like I think like my first fight on a matchroom card was my second fight, and I fought a kid 1-1. Do you know what I mean? And then my next fight, it was like another journeyman, and then my next fight was Renald Garrido. Do you ever remember him? The Frenchman that used to wear the lion hat. But at the time I was fighting him when he was like ready to fight for the French title, not when he'd become a journeyman years later, like all these fighters. He was like 10-4 or something, and I fought him in like my 4th fight. And he was right up for it, come out of the ring, crawling with a lion mask on and all that. It was in the Liverpool Olympia. But at the time, I was banging everyone out in like round 1 or 2. And I was like, I had the Reyes on as well at the time, thinking like, yeah. And these were like Reyes from like the 80s. They were battered. But he obviously had them on as well, do you know what I mean? First round comes out, boom, hit him, down he goes. He'd never been put down in his career. And I was like, I'm going to get him here. Went out second round, absolutely guns blazing, couldn't get rid of him. Third round comes out, he clipped me, put me down. I was like, oh, we're in for a war here now. And then we were back and forth, and like I got it on by a couple of rounds. Do you know what I mean? And as years went on, he ended up becoming one of my good sparring partner. I used to bring him over all the time because he was just rough and ready. And then I was like, so I always had like where they go like journeyman, real fight, journeyman, real fight, journeyman, just to get me used to.
That sounds much better than
that's
maybe
the way,
15
that
journeyman.
was the way like Dave Caldwell done it at first, do you know what I mean? And then when I moved over to Neil Marsh, I was just ready to go on to like my first like sort of title fights, but not against like elite title. Do you know like where you find a kid like 12-1 or something like that when you'll fight for like a WBA Continental or something like that. I was just getting at that sort of process, and then that's when after them sort of fights, then I went on to like championship fights on like big arenas and stuff like that. So I gradually took the little step by step and built into it. Do you know what I mean? Like some of these fighters where they're coming from the GB elite team, they're just going straight into the spotlight. Do you know what I mean? Like so.
Well, your fight, didn't he have like a 10-rounder in his first fight or something?
See, like, but that's a bit different again because he's a gold medalist, do you know what I mean? You'd half expect that, and he's a bit older. I mean, when I was turning pro, I was only like 22, 23. I think he's about 28, 29.
Fast tracking him.
Yeah, because he's an elite level fighter anyway, do you know what I mean? But some of the fighters that like go straight in, it can either work better for them because they can move quickly, or it can be harder for them because the transition hasn't been as good for them. Do you know what I mean? Like you've seen some of the lads that come from GB and they've like stagnated and they're still like, they might have been pro 5 years, but they haven't even fought for a British title yet. But you've seen some of them that have like, they could be British champion in 4 fights. Do you know what I mean? So I think everyone's different. It's just what works best for you, really.
Yeah. And do you think as well, adjusting to the pro game, sometimes it's not always best for them to stay with their coach they had as an amateur? Because sometimes obviously you need to learn new tools and there's a whole different game.
I think that's another one as well. It varies because you see some fighters like they always keep their amateur coaches like around. Like, for an example, Luke Campbell was a great fighter, and even when he joined Shane, he always had his amateur coach around. Do you know what I mean? I can't think of a few more off the top of my head, but
so they'd just be like part of the team, which instead
like,
of them being like the head coach.
Yeah. Like there's some fighters that it works for. Like I remember AJ with Rob McCracken. Like he won his first world title, he won an Olympic gold medal. Like you can't really fault anything that they done up at that point. Do you know what I mean? So some people might be an out and out amateur boxer where they're up on the toes and they're jumping up and down, and they might need to go with a different type of coach where they learn to sit down on the shots and stuff like that. But some it works for, some just stay as they are and can go right through their whole careers with one coach, what they're more comfortable with. And some fighters are just that good, it doesn't matter who coaches them. As you see them and you think like, that coach never made him world champion, he would have been world champion with anyone.
Yeah.
But then you see some fighters that were rough and ready, left the amateurs with nothing, and the coaches just turned them into world champions. Like, without not trying to sound disrespectful, but like people that come to mind are like when Joe Gallagher turned like Scott Quigg and Anthony Crawler to world champions. Like they that's like two of the best scenarios like in that what you can think of. Like, because when they were turning pro, you'd never have thought it, and Joe Gallagher just like got them to a Pacific way and turned them into world champions. Do you know what I mean? So like some fighters need the move and some fighters don't need the move, is what I'm trying to say. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's so hard to learn on the job because obviously no one really wants to lose in any of the fights. It's a tough process. I want to talk about, you had an altercation with O'Hara Davies. Seemed pretty funny. I don't know, what was the ins and outs? What happened with that?
So on the Manchester show when Foley got made with Jack Cattrall, I thought, well, I haven't been going to any shows, obviously, with my injury and stuff like that, but I'll go to this one. So I just messaged him. Matchroom said, I'm going to come to this one. He was like, yeah, no worries. Just pick your tickets up when you get here. And as I'm walking to my seat, I just see like this like group of people all sitting there, and I know all the faces. And as I get to the end person, like 2 seats away from me is O'Hara. I thought, there we go. I'm sitting there on my own, he's with all his team. And then Sam Jones comes over and he's talking to Lee and a few of the others, like, because he's not with their team, he's just like chatting about boxing and stuff like that. And I look over and Sam goes, oh, all right, Rob, blah, blah, blah. Starts talking to me and he goes, this is the fight to make, innit, blah, blah, blah. And I went, doesn't say nothing in real life though, and he talks on Twitter. And he went, well, I called you out 2 weeks ago. And I was like, surprise, surprise. Called me out when my legs broke. And then whatever happened, it started getting a bit heated. And everyone jumps up and he jumps up. At the time, I'm still on one leg. Don't forget, like, I'm not as mobile as I am now. I'm only just walking about. And I jump up and a few people like jump in the way of us. And he like swings his arm round and I like lean back and it clips the top of my head, and then just hell breaks loose. He's happy to let everyone pull him away and I'm just standing there shouting and stuff like that. And then I obviously, because I'm on my own and they're in a group, it's easier for me to just go around the other side of the ring. But at first I'm like, listen, I'm not moving around the other side and getting put in a shit seat. And they were like, nah, go ahead, you go around the other side, you'll be in a better seat. So I was like, all right, so I'll move around the other side. I can't even see them, but he then messaged me on Twitter and goes, get round here, Rob, come and show everyone the red mark on your head where I just slapped you. I'm like, fucking hell. And then obviously we're having a little bit of back and forth on Twitter as well then.
You've had a back and forth with him a few times in the past, haven't you?
Yeah, it's gone on for years. Hopefully one day it happens and I get to punch him in the face. But for now it looks like he's got a fight with Rowley or whoever's going to be champion at the time. So
who do you think wins, him against Rowley?
I hate to say it, but I think O'Hara will beat him.
Well, Rowley got gifted that. The referee stoppage was...
Rowley can bang and he's rough and ready. Do you know what I mean? He's unpredictable with his shots because they come from all angles because he's just swinging and brawling. Mm-hmm. Like, you seen him when he fought Tank, like him. I know Tank's only small, but he put it on Tank for them first few rounds, just swinging relentlessly. And he could do that, but I just think as the rounds go on, he's not very technical, and I think just don't know, just my opinion. I think go hard, I'll win.
And would you say if you get the rematch with Foley, that would be the fight after you'd want?
Yeah, if I could just pick and choose as I please, that would be a great way to go. Yeah.
So for people listening, obviously you've gone through the hard way. You've gone through the amateur system and then the small hall shows, and now Eddie. Have you got any advice to anyone that's out there that's aspiring to be in your position? You know, you've got all the titles.
Yeah, like if you're leaving the amateurs with absolutely nothing, like what I did, like it's a hard route to do. Like and you've got to have something about you to get noticed by the top promotional companies. So you've got to either be willing to go all or nothing, because if you're only halfway and you've got an outside life as well, like I've seen lads that have left the amateurs with me and went pro, but they're in love with the birds and they're going on holidays and stuff like that, and it never plans out for them. And I was like, he was a red hot boxer as well, but or I've seen other lads that have got involved in the wrong stuff, but they were proper. Some in this gym have been quality boxers. Then next thing they're on the front of the paper dealing with guns and stuff like that, and they're like 5 years younger than me. And I'm like, what's gone on there? Do you know what I mean? So I think like if there's any young people are aspiring to get to the top in the boxing game, but the amateurs isn't quite working out for them, you've got to find a coach that's you find a bond with, and you've got to be willing to give everything. Like there's no maybes or ifs or in between. Like there's nothing pulling you away that you want to do just as much. It's got to be all boxing, and then you might get there, because it's an hard game, and you got to think like in each weight category, just in this country, there must be 2,000-3,000 fighters, and you've got to be one of 20 to get noticed. So just make sure you've got something to buy you. Paint your hair green or something.
Well, it does work, doesn't it? Call people out and open your mouth a bit more.
That's it.
And obviously, like selling tickets, that's a tough thing. You get really good fighters that can't even do a 6 or 8 rounder because they can't sell enough tickets for that. Yeah. So they've got the talent and they're trying to go through, but they can't even.
That's why some of the top amateurs don't do as well as pros for reasons like this, because they don't sell. Maybe because they didn't have like a personal life as much with loads of mates, because they give everything to boxing as an amateurs. Do you know what I mean? And then when they finally go to turn professional, they're not socially active, like where they'll get on the microphone and start calling people out, because they're like, that's just not me. Do you know what I mean? So they'll struggle in that sense as well. Do you know what I mean? So I don't even know what it was about me. I was mouthy and started
and you backed it up.
Started chinning a few journeymen. Do you know what I mean? So I kept going on about like how many journeymen I've knocked out. When you look back at it now, you're like, oh, cringing. But like just stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And eventually someone goes, well, all right, then we'll have a look at you, but you better show us something. Do you know what I mean? And then luckily for me, I'd like got on a big show and chinned someone, and they were like, oh, all right. And then the ball gets rolling for you, and then you might go missing for a few fights, but then they might get you back again. You've just got to be willing to go through the process. And
would you say you're coming into your prime now? Obviously, regardless of the ankle, do you think the best is yet to come?
Yeah, like I am. I think since I've been with Shane, like people have seen my best performances, like really been sitting down on me punches and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of people have like thought I was done since the ankle break. Do you know what I mean? Because I got clipped and got put down and stuff like that. Like, Dara Foley shouldn't be dropping him. Oh, he's past it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's more like how to prove a point as well now. Do you know what I mean? And then I feel like if that wouldn't have happened, people would have been looking at me in a light like, we need to get Robbie a big fight now, one of the big boys. Do you know what I mean? But then, because of that loss and the ankle break, everyone's like, don't know if he's still got it. Do you know what I mean? So, well, I'm out to prove a lot of people wrong and get myself back to where it was.
Have you got a message for Dara Foley?
Just let's get it on. He said to me in the ring we could do it again. Eddie said we can do it again. His team seem confident to do it again. My team are confident to do it again. So I don't see anything that could stop it, really.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Do you want to shout? Is there any sponsors you want to shout at the end? Or?
Do you know what? Like, I'm solo. Like, I just get on with it. Don't really have sponsors or nothing like that, but I appreciate it anyway. Appreciate you coming down.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Nice one.